Episode 184, Standing Out. Let's go. Good morning, everybody. Trey Griggs here, Beta Consulting Group, coming to you today live from Dallas, Texas, the headquarters of Highway, a new company we're going to talk about today with my good friend Jordan Graft coming on the show in just a minute. So excited that you are with us today. If you're in the comments, let us know where you're watching from. And if you've got a question for Jordan, throw it in there, and we will get to it later in the show. First of all, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the TAFs, the good guys in Freight Factory. Thanks so much for sponsoring the show. If you are behind the wheel of a truck or a small company, make sure you reach out to them today at tafs.com. Let them know that I sent you. Going to help you with cash flow resources, discounts on fuels, tires, and so many other things. And even easier, just click on the link that Ruth is going to put into the comments today. That takes you right to my landing page so they know that I sent you. And while you're out surfing the web, check us out at betaconsultinggroup.com and see how we are helping companies move out of the realm of obscurity into becoming a well-known and trusted brand in order to grow revenue. We'd love to work with you, so fill out a form and we will reach out to you later. And while you're there, you might as well pick up a little bit of swag. Be a part of our community that we're creating here at Beta Consulting Group, all about people that are pursuing excellence every day. So pick up some swag, some merch from the store, a coffee mug or some water bottle, t-shirt, whatever it is. Be sure to use coupon code THANKFUL because it is still Thanksgiving season, Thanksgiving right around the corner. And we would love to give you 20% off your entire order by putting in all caps THANKFUL into the shopping cart, and make sure you get that discount. When you get your swag, take a picture and send it to us. We'd love to highlight what you're doing there. I appreciate you guys so much for the support. All right, we've had a great week of shows so far this week. Yesterday, we had a phenomenal special from the Women in Trucking Conference right here in Dallas. Had so many great women on this show yesterday. Make sure you check that out on demand. And the rest of the week has some great guests. Corey Shear is going to be on tomorrow talking about building a brand that can be trusted, which is so cool. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. My friend Jason Rabin from Max Freight Lines is going to talk about what he's doing for veterans, especially with Low Boy Industries. And on Friday, my good friend Aaron Shalecki, who is in the military, coming to us from DC, talking about working with the Department of Defense. It's going to be a great show on Friday. So make sure you come back every day, 10:30 a.m. Central, for an episode of Standing Out, and we will see you then. All right, we got a great guest today. This guy has done some phenomenal things in the transportation and logistics industry, working with tech companies and now building a piece of technology that is absolutely going to revolutionize the way that freight brokers work, specifically around carrier identity. So I'm so excited to have him on the show today. Please welcome to the show my good friend, Jordan Graft.
Thank you, Trey.
What's up, buddy?
Appreciate you coming by.
Hey, thanks for letting me be in the headquarters here of Highway in Dallas. It's awesome to be here today. So thanks for letting me come in and set up and destroy the place a little bit. How's everything going for you?
You didn't rearrange too much.
Not too much.
Man.
A few things. Not too much.
No, it's great, man. My wife is actually over at the Women in Trucking Conference here in Dallas earlier this week. They're there today. So a lot going on in Dallas this week. And it's good, man. We're here grinding, trying to move fast and get people live on Highway.
I love it. And it's a new technology, still kind of in the beginning phases, but really making some inroads, especially with brokers, getting the integrations done with TMS, those kind of things. What was the inspiration behind Highway?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my background, I started working at JP Morgan right out of school, financial services. And in the financial services community, my background there, I experienced this thing called like KYC, know your customer. Right. And there was big companies investigating and trying to understand who they were working with as vendors or customers. And so coming into the broker freight side, this industry is so new, right? It's grown. I mean, last 20 years taken so much market share. I get maybe it's like 40 years old in total. But a lot of these like traditional processes and understanding of like the identity of who you're working with was missing. And so it just felt like the right opportunity and what we need in this space. And a lot of the challenges we face in the broker freight community, both missed opportunities and risks, start with not really knowing who's on the other end of that transaction.
Yeah, it's a real problem right now, especially double brokering is a big issue in the industry, and just the carriers that will go out of business and then reinvent themselves and come back in. We see a lot of that going on. So it's funny talking about you had a financial background, and now you're here doing carrier identity. And we were talking to Brittany and some of your team members before how we all have degrees potentially in something else, and we're not really using them in a way, but it all led to where we are today. And that's kind of what it's been for you with the experience you had over at TriumphPay.
Yeah. So I went from working in banking, I actually ran a grocery delivery business back in 2014 in Northwest Florida. I actually own reefer equipment. And so like if you should have hired me as a carrier though, I would not have been I would not have qualified through highway. Let's just say that. And then after that, Brittany and I actually ran that business together, and we learned how to write software there because we were dealing with such huge frictional issues running a grocery delivery business, which is, you think about it, you have $100 order, you have 30 items in that order. Like we had to figure out how we were going to build the system, be able to know where to pick it in the warehouse, how to get it in the truck in the right order. And that led us down a path where we realized like building software was more valuable than what we were doing delivering groceries. And we weren't as smart as like Instacart and those guys. But so Brittany and I ran a development firm here in Dallas for about 8 years, had 30 developers on the staff. And so got a lot of at-bats and reps building software for other people. And then that led into when, Aaron came and they needed someone to take over TriumphPay and run that business that had the background in financial services, had the background in developing software, and got the chance to learn brokered freight and meet a lot of people in the industry.
It's interesting how every step along the way, even though maybe you can't see it right away, it all leads to what's next. I think that's so true just in life in general. And it's cool to see that you guys have reached this point with all that experience now. Because, I brokered freight for 6 months. I was terrible as well. Like nobody would have hired me as a freight broker. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. It was really, really bad. But the experience alone allows me to better understand what a freight broker goes through every day. So even though I didn't enjoy that, and it was kind of like, why am I doing this right now? It all led to the next thing. And that's been good for you guys.
There's a guy I met real early in my career. I was probably 23 or 24. His name was Mike Rawlins. He used to be the mayor of Dallas. And he was talking with me, and he's like, Jordan, what are you uniquely positioned to do? And I was like, you're 24, you don't have a whole lot, right? I was like, I grew up in nowhere, Western Oklahoma. Maybe I understand the rural community. And he just like kept pushing me. He said, you probably don't have a ton that differentiates you right now. But as you go through your career, you need to focus on compounding your experiences and creating a unique perspective on the world. And I think what makes us unique in how we approach the problem is our background in dealing with financial services or dealing in the transmission of money, right? Which is has to be, you have to have lots of security around that, and the experience operating in a controlled environment. And I use that term controlled environment. A lot of people don't know what that means, and so that context of understanding how you operate in a bank and in that world, and then taking that application of sitting down, building software for someone is like a mechanic. Like they sit down and they're going to describe the problem they have. And very rarely can they ultimately articulate the solution. And so our job is to sit there and hear the problems, hear the challenges, hear the risks, and then articulate a solution in the software that we build that solves that pain. It's not the customer's responsibility to like design your software for you. It's your responsibility to hear what they're saying to you and then turn it into something incredibly valuable for them.
Yeah, that's a process you had time to learn and practice, get right.
A lot of at-bats. You get it wrong a lot of times.
I think this thing too is you have to have a lot of at-bats, to get good at something, and you have to just keep working at it. I often say this: if you want to be great at something, you've got to be willing to kind of stink for a while. You got to be willing just to be bad for a while. And a lot of people sometimes aren't willing to do that to get to being a great part. So I think it's great you guys went through that.
Yeah, and you got to find people that'll believe in you and give you a chance. I mean, the first person we sold groceries to was like, I think my friend from college, and then the first person that hired us to build a web application was a guy that I met in Florida, and then the first broker that trusted on TriumphPay, was a friend, right? And then the first broker that trusts us on the highway is a friend, and like I think that's where the network comes in, and too many people treat the relationships in work as transactional. So like, what am I going to get out of this relationship? And then focusing solely on that. And people can detect that. Yeah. And instead, if you focus on building relationships, like there's a customer going live on a highway who never went live on TriumphPay. There was a fundamental reason why they couldn't do it. But that person is just like a dear friend to me because we've been to 4 TIs together. I've been hunting with them. Like I've traveled with them, and like they never were going to be a customer at TriumphPay, but like I just love them as a person. They were really a great mentor to me and friend. And now, like this new phase of life, there is a chance to work together. And so, I just encourage people like you do. I think you lead really well for us in the industry, just building relationships, getting to know people. And if you focus on that first and understanding like what interests that person and what makes them special, like the opportunities will come.
Yeah, I believe that too. And when you think about networking, for me, it's about, I think from the perspective, how can I bring people together so that they can both win? Like that's how I see networking. So I know that if I do that enough, I'm gonna be taken care of, I guess is the way to think of it. It's kind of like the Zig Ziglar approach. If you help enough people get what they want in life, you're going to be taken care of in your own life. And I really take that approach on networking, that trying to get people together, trying to find, there's a lot of freight brokers out there that are watching this that are going to need highway. They're going to potentially need to use that. I like connecting those parts to make sure they do that. So let's jump over to talk about the product for a minute. So for the freight brokers that are out there that are watching this, or shippers that are out there, I imagine those would be the two main segments that you guys are selling into.
No, actually just brokers.
Just freight brokers. Okay,
yeah,
so let's just
serve
focus
one
on
master.
That. Okay, very good. That's good. That's good.
We don't serve our customers.
You guys got your niche. Yeah, that's very good. So talk about why a freight broker should really look into highway.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the biggest challenges facing the brokered freight community today, things like carrier identity theft, dispatcher services pretending to be carriers. You got leased on fleets using leased on carriers where you don't have visibility into what's really happening. And it all boils down to an identity issue. It's who's really hauling your freight. Yeah. And so highway defines carrier identity is answering three questions. Who are you? Right? Are you really the carrier? And what equipment do you actually have? And it's not novel, right? See, these concepts, they're really at their core authentication, authorization, and capability, which anybody that comes from an identity access management background or that world understands that all networks and systems, that's the core of how you interact with it. Who are you? What capabilities do you have? And then, can you do what you're trying to do? And so we just want to take that and apply it in a very industry specific way, in a very domain specific way for freight brokers. And so by answering these questions, who are you? Are you really the carrier? And what equipment do you have? We can reduce a lot of the noise, proactively reduce the noise before these events are getting in your network, right? The problem today is we let them in our network. We let them in the house, and then we use all these tools to retroactively try and get them out. Yeah. The goal is to proactively put up a defense, a frontline defense that makes you a hard target. So when bad actors come and see you and see that, they're going to run and go chase softer targets. That's one of the first and most basic principles of cybersecurity is be the harder target. Because, people that, bad actors or criminals, like when they're attempting to transact, they're going to go and go after the softer ones because they got to do this at scale. They got to go after and do a lot of volume of these things, and they don't want to waste time on people that are going to make it more challenging. So that's kind of the first principle of cybersecurity. So yeah, to just kind of recap, it's like, we want to answer the question for you, who's really hauling your freight, and do it digitally and do it at scale so that you can focus on your core business, which is your network, which is the freight brokers network, and getting that flywheel to spin faster.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see a lot of the freight brokers, especially the mid to high level brokers, creating really their own communities around that and creating that kind of that wall, that defense. One of our mutual friends at Edge Logistics, Wilker, they're building their own little kind of marketplace and community, and I'm seeing more of that going on. Where do you see the industry going when it comes to these little kind of mini networks that people are creating?
Yeah, it's in such an interesting phase. So, when you look at other segments or other industries, there's this really cool case study about retail and how the movement of retail spending shifting from physical to online. And that's what I covered when I was at JP Morgan, covered retailers. And so I got to see firsthand the destruction that was created by and value created by that move. And they use this matrix of, there's three components: price, selection, and convenience. So people buy online for price, selection, convenience. And when you think about Borders being one of the first major retailers, it was digital media that took out the bookstores, right? Because it was cheaper to buy online, right? This is all stuff we know. Selection, easier to find the book you want on a website than walking around a store. And the convenience, the delayed gratification, you got it instantly versus going to the store. Versus like a category like grocery is one of the last categories to fall, right? Because price, selection, convenience is not as powerful online as it was in the store. And that's slowly changing. It wasn't the matrix doesn't say, the valuation tool doesn't say that's never going to change. It just talks about the velocity of change. And so when you apply like a similar matrix onto like a B2B world where you have freight brokers, I think a great analogy is to look at we use to look at that. We say, what is the underlying fragmentation of the transaction? What does it cost to enter? And what are the economies of scale? And you look at maybe an example of travel. So travel agents, very similar intermediary type concept between, that was a little more B2C, but there was a lot of B2B travel agents. And, they saw disruption 15, 20 years ago by the digital experience. And that's because, in my opinion, the core underlying transaction is not that fragmented. Like you and I buying an airline seat is pretty darn similar, right? You and I buying a hotel room is pretty darn similar. But when you think about the underlying transaction in brokered freight, like just even take truckload, over-the-road truckload, like you have a ton of fragmentation just in the value of the cargo and what types of carriers you're going to allow to engage in that transaction versus the type of cargo versus the type of trailer required. There's so much more fragmentation. So I think what that means as we apply this to the overall industry is that you're going to have an industry with a lot of specialists. It's going to look, in my opinion, a lot like trailer manufacturers. You got Utility and Great Dane who own a big chunk of the core dry van reefer market. But then as you move down and you think about specialties, you've got a lot more, you get into a lot of fragmented manufacturers who are producing across a lot of different types of trailers. So I think for people that want to be big and large and, go more, when you think about your focus, like it's more on cost and the ability to transact very efficiently, digital is a huge piece of that. And that's what we want to help serve, is that they're the network. They're going from being service providers to being freight networks. And we want to help them by creating a digital identity that the carrier can get access.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that, I want to go back to a minute where you talked about knowing your customer, because your process really is not to tell customers necessarily what they need, but to talk to customers and ask them what their problems are and then build a solution based upon that. Talk a little bit about that, because some companies will say, this is what you need, and just use our product is what you need. But you take a different approach to that. Talk about your approach to building this and working with customers to make that happen.
Yeah, and in all my experience building great product as a service provider, it's your job first to understand, what are you doing today and what can be better? What are the opportunities? If you ever are on a sales call with me and I don't do that, then I want you to call me out, but I want to understand first, what are you doing today and what are the opportunities you see today? Okay? Because you got to start with their mindset first, because brokers aren't all the same. They do a lot of different things. I mean, I have a friend, Corey Eckley, she runs at NATCO a very different type of brokerage than Will does at Edge. Yeah. And so showing up to someone like that and saying, hey, here's how you need to do it, Corey. This is how it goes. She's like, first it's a level of arrogance that just doesn't demonstrate your willingness to understand what they need. And so, it's always this balance when you have a product of customization versus scalability. And to truly build an amazing product, you have to find the balance, right? And you have to find the balance of how you address the desire for everyone to have customized solutions with the reality to create the true user experience you want. That great user experience, you need to have a level of standardization in the product. And so that's a balance you have to strike. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of repetitions to figure that out. And that's a lot of the secret sauce, is if you can find that balance, you can really create something special and still serve the needs of the customers where they want to be served.
Yeah. So talk about Highway for a minute from a customization standpoint. Is it going to be a product that customers can easily customize, or is it going to be something that it's going to take a lot of work with your team to do that? Or how do you envision that moving forward, creating those good standards of the baseline with the customization?
Yeah. So you got to think about it in the approach of anything around the tooling that I want to do. So as a customer, I want to be able to empower the employees that I have that are working with the customers to meet their needs, to have the tooling they need to go do it. And to be able to do that in an environment that doesn't require a lot of change management. And that's, when you think about, that concept of change management, that's where you see a lot of the slowdown in serving needs. And so this is one of the key things I did at TriumphPay. I encouraged all my customers to do at Cratebuy once I understood the principle. And what we do at Highway is product is fundamentally separated from implementation. And it's a concept that allows us to have the implementation team have their own strategic goals and priorities and directions that allow them to go fast and meet the needs of customers and be responsive and get things live, versus product is focused on more long-term, on the farther out on the strategic horizon, right? Implementation is focused on really short on the strategic horizon. Product needs to be way out on the curve. Where are we going in 6 months to a year? And if you let those two commingle too much, you get the worst of both worlds. Your product team can't see far enough out to think about what they need to be innovating on.
And the day-to-day needs
aren't getting met.
Yeah, exactly. And technology in particular, one of the biggest failures I've seen with tech companies is a poor implementation process, is poor training with customers. How are you guys tackling that issue?
Yeah. So it has its own leader and it has its own set of strategic priorities. What that leader is measured on is fundamentally different than what the sales leader is measured on. It's fundamentally different than what the product leader is measured on. And so as I think about developing effective organizations, I use this model of there has to be structure, information flow, and incentive alignment. And so structure is what are the strategic priorities and how are you being measured against those? Information flow is both vertical as up and down, right? Communicating down to the team how we're doing as an organization. We have a monthly meeting where I communicate relative to our strategic plan how we're doing. And it's green light, yellow light, red light. I want everyone on the team, every employee to know, this is from my mouth what's happening, and you're not hearing it secondhand. But then the information flow up is really important, but you have to have first that structure to have a matrix in which you can communicate to one another and evaluate the communication that you're making. And the last is incentive alignment, which is not a simple thing to do. People say, well, I was going to have a commission plan or this and that. You've got to make sure that you're incentivizing the people that create value, that have a very short time span between an action and the value they create, like salespeople, And as you move farther down as you move farther to the right in the organization, you're going to have people that the value they create is more long term and more compounding. And so like that's where you have to pull the levers and make sure that these people, their incentive alignments is correct with how they act and perform, and then that's being communicated well through information flow, and that is structured in a way that they understand and can comprehend.
Yeah. When you incentivize people based upon what they want and based upon the performance, it takes care of a lot of problems. And when you don't get it right, it creates a lot of problems. So it's a big deal. I want to talk a little bit about leadership in a minute, but before we do that, we're going to pause because every day on the show we have some fun stuff that we do. All right. So first of all, we always celebrate the national day. Like Friday was Veterans Day. You know, we always have a national day. Do you know what today's national day is?
Mohawk Day.
All right. So today's national day, let's see what it is. It is, hopefully it pops up on the screen sooner. Maybe I don't know, maybe it might not show it today. We'll have to see what it is today. We also do, so we'll pause on that for a minute. We also do a random question today. Everyone. Now I don't even know what this question is. It's always so random. Like we let our podcast producer put this together. So it could be good. It could be bad. I don't know. It could be funny. It could be serious. I don't know. So today's random question of the day is, what's the strangest thing you've ever eaten?
Oh man.
Got anything?
I wish my wife was here. She's gonna remember better than I would. I mean, I have like bone marrow. Like I've had that.
Oh, really? You can eat that?
Squid ink pasta. Like, but that stuff's that's not like too far out there on the curve.
That's not too far out there. Any weird combinations, maybe? Because I got one I'm going to share in just a minute.
I don't know, but I try about anything.
Yeah.
Right. So like, pate, all that stuff. Like, I'm into that.
Foreign countries, just give me what you got. We'll try it out.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Just roll the dice.
I've gotten that way in my life. I've gotten a little bit better about just trying stuff. In fact, what I'm doing now is I go to restaurants and I just ask for recommendations. I'm like, what do you think I should have? Because usually the server wants you to be good, right? They want you to have a good meal. So
I see. But here's the problem. My wife does that, but then she won't order I'm like 9 times out of 10. She's over there. 9 times out of 10, she won't order what they recommend. I'm like, this is you're now insulting the man or woman. Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with something else. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, so let me tell you. So I didn't actually.
What was it that you eat?
So I didn't actually eat this, but I used to be a youth pastor. I don't know if you know about. I used to be a youth pastor, and when you're a youth pastor, sometimes you have to come up with fun, crazy things. All right. So one day, I came up with this idea. I took big vats of like Costco mayonnaise. All right, imagine this. Put it in a big bowl. Okay, it gets better. I put sour gummy worms in the mayonnaise, like buried in the mayonnaise. All right, and then I had the kids that thought they were all that, right? Pair up into partners, right? One of them had to fish the gummy worms out with their teeth, with their feet, with their toes, and then feed it to the other person directly. And the first team to get 3 of them down won. We had a kid throw up during that. It was disgusting. But I didn't eat it, but it was really fun just to have somebody else eat that. That was a pretty terrible combination of mayonnaise and sour gummy worms.
I think that's a sign of a good youth group.
It is.
Either throwing up or
I thought it was, right? I mean, I thought that was pretty good. We also blended a McDonald's Happy Meal or a value meal together with a milkshake to see if you can take that. All right, we should stop talking. Lunch is coming up soon. We shouldn't go that route. But anyways, so good question. Not a bad question. Do we have a national day today? Let's see if we actually have today's national day. If we don't, we're going to move on and talk about leadership. We'll see it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So today is National Clean Out Your Refrigerator Day.
Those two can kind of feed into one another.
They kind of do. Yeah. They feed. Nice job there. How often are you guys having to throw stuff out of your refrigerator?
So like I get stuff. We have 3 small children. I want stuff out of the fridge, right? Like I'm all about getting it out, and my wife's completely the opposite, and so I get like dirty looks when I'm throwing stuff away. So it's it's tension. It's good. It's healthy tension. You need tension in your life, and so I'd say I'm generally losing that battle, but there's stuff way too old in my fridge
it's funny. It's like you go to a restaurant and you're like, well, we'll take this home. We'll take it home. We'll take it home, and then it goes to the back, and a lot of times you don't see it for a couple weeks, and then stuff starts smelling. Yeah, clean out your refrigerator. If you haven't cleaned out your refrigerator in at least a week, you should definitely do it. Is this a weekly thing for you?
Yeah, there's some stuff that should never go in the fridge. Like you shouldn't save like fried food, right? Like people that like try and save French fries.
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't work. It's not gonna work.
Just you're fighting physics.
Yeah, it just unless you're gonna turn the oven on and like actually put it, then maybe get it crispy again. But that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, the broiler's
pretty amazing.
We had this last night.
True. All right, this is getting a little out of hand. That's for sure. So, hey, we have a special guest in there, right, that wants to talk to us. We've never done this before, but we got the one and only Doug Clark on the show today. He's just going to jump in here and what do you got for us?
What wisdom
man?
Do you have for us, Doug?
Clearly you have something you want to say.
No, I'm sitting.
You have to speak up loud too, because we have microphones on.
Okay, well, I'm sitting here back here in this audience of 100 watching this podcast, and I felt like I needed to jump in here and kind of just support Highway and Trey. These are 2 of my most wonderful friends in transportation in the whole world, And as you can see, these guys have great communication together, and then plus they're enjoying themselves. And I'm back here laughing just like the rest of us, and we're trying to hold back what we're thinking. But I do want to say something about Highway.
Please, yeah, go right ahead.
One of the things, I mean, I do the consulting side of it when it comes to operations and truck brokerage. Been doing it for over 40 years, and also the other side of leadership side of it. Now, when I think of somebody like Highway and what we're doing now in my brokerage, and what I teach is the number one priority in brokerage is avoiding vicarious liability. That is my number one priority out there, is avoiding vicarious liability. Now, this product is nothing like I've ever seen before. And when you can take this value proposition to your customers and show them what you do on your onboarding, it blows them away, because you're looking out for the customer. Vicarious liability, we hear all about the nuclear lawsuits and all these other things going on, but this is one more thing in your toolkit that's going to help you avoid that vicarious liability and actually know who is hauling that freight. Back in the old days, you had to have the driver call in his VIN number, and then you had to match it up with SafeStat or something to see if it was it. And then they would have their brother-in-law coming over there and picking up this load for somebody else. So when we talk about carrier identity, this is knowing who is hauling your freight. The second thing I always concern myself with in brokerage is accounts receivable. And that's very important too, because when you end up with these loads where people are the loads are being held hostage, what is that? Now you have a hook in you because of somebody that feels like they weren't paid or whatever, or that you were doing something wrong. But at least you know who this individual is, who actually owns this truck. So it's an incredible product. And I'm gonna do one more. Both these guys love this one company called Parade. I'm gonna throw a shout out to them, and because what they do is help you get more loads on your books every day. If we're going to compete with the larger companies out there, which small brokerages is what I know about, and large ones too, but the small ones, we have to be able to be more efficient. How do you leverage your intellectual capital of your employees to actually get them to move more freight? It's all about how many loads per head can you get going. I mean, that is a big, big deal. And so there are some products out there now that we have to look at as smaller brokers, and you have to embrace change. So get close to your
you got a lot of cheerleaders behind you, but you didn't know I was going to jump in and plug that. I know.
And all you folks in the audience, please continue to keep quiet.
Our studio audience here today, which is hilarious. No, it's great. I want to talk. Let's jump in and talk about leadership for a little bit. Because you've started to make some noise in the industry. Start hiring some people. Michael Caney just came on board.
Oh yeah.
Talk about your philosophy when it comes to building around you a really strong leadership team.
Oh man, to do it right, and they're all sitting here, so they're going to get an audit when I say, which is great. To do it right, you have to consider the role and consider how that relates to you, and you got to do some real self-discovery about who you are, like being honest about who you are. There are things that I am not great at. I'm not great at attention to detail. I am not necessarily patient, and like I got to put people around me in the right spots that can complement and not be driven crazy by my personality. And so got some wonderful people that both help me go faster and also help me go slower. Caney's one that helps me go faster. He's a high activator. And, with high activators, you got to be mindful of who they're interacting with, because they create so much energy that at times can lead to more conflict. So you got to make sure they're not sitting next directly to another high activator, because you're going to get the thing running out of control. And then when it comes to product, like Brendan Bailey, he's our chief product officer. I've known him since college. I think when you're in a startup environment, the ability to know who these people are and what they believe and their morals and their character, and that level of trust is so important when the team is really small. When you can all reach out and touch each other, when you're in that size room, that element of I know Brendan, I trust him with my life, trust him with my, he's the man. And so he's also just a really good grounding rod for all the other activators in the room, because he makes us stop and think and ask questions. So, the complementary nature, you can't hire everyone that just looks like you. You got to hire people that have a different set of talents.
But that really starts with being self-aware. And I think a lot of leaders sometimes skip that part of the process of really understanding who they are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and really trying to build around that. And that can be tough, but it's valuable when you find those people.
Do your own internal SWOT analysis.
Yeah, that's right. Figure out what you're good at, what you're not at. Well, this has been a really fun episode. Coleman, what's up, man? Thanks for watching.
Hey,
Thanks
Coleman.
for the comment. Coleman's such a great dude.
Yeah.
But this has been a you never know when you go live what's going to happen. And this is my first audience participation jumping in. So Doug, welcome. This is the first time we've had that. We didn't mic you up. We needed to mic you up. I don't have enough mics for this. We'll have to fix that.
That's all right. I kind of thought it was like Monday Night Football.
Just Peyton Manning hopping in, giving us a little.
There you go.
Well, hey, listen, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Jordan, thanks for being on the show. Doug as well. Great to see you on the show as well. Make sure you come back tomorrow. We've got a great episode with Corey Shear. Going to talk about building a brand that you can trust. Super excited about that. And every day at 10:30 a.m. Central for an episode of Standing Out, a daily podcast about sales, marketing, leadership. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Thanks, guys.
You guys.
That's awesome. Hey.